Illuminating Solutions, the podcast where we shine a light on the challenges and opportunities facing the mortgage industry today. And we offer real solutions to help you grow and thrive. I'm your host, Laura Brandeo, CEO of Lighthouse Advisors, and I've spent the last 25 years building and transforming companies, empowering leaders, and driving innovation across the industry. And at Lighthouse Advisors, we're all about filling the gaps, solving the problems, and delivering executive level expertise to help you take your business to the next level. So if you're ready to shine a light on what's holding you back and discover new ways to move forward, you've come to the right place. Welcome to Illuminating Solutions.
Okay.
We are joined by the amazing Andy Tabag, and his expertise at Lighthouse Advisors is all about the numbers, business and financial planning, accounting, budgets, forecasting, operational metrics, the cost of origination or acquisition, and also whiteboarding opportunities. And Andy is going to go a little bit deeper about that. So Andy, let's jump right into this. My first question, what do you see as the most pressing challenge facing the mortgage industry today?
Well, from my past experience and speaking to folks in the industry that run, companies, small and large, a lot of what they're dealing with right now is determining their baseline. Where are they, right now in this climate, and basically how they're going to take, where they are in this climate today, which is different than it was, several years ago, and put some rigor, some thought, some planning to reach whatever goal that they expect for the company in 2025 and beyond.
Wow, that is a really interesting perspective there to get that. Because I think, the last 2 years, our industry has been in survival mode. They've just been trying to figure out, and it's so interesting that, a year and a half ago or so, the MBA said, just survive until 25. And it's so interesting that here we are coming into the end of 24, and it kind of does look like 25 should be better in terms of a rate climate and the originations going into it. But because there's been so much survival mode, I don't think people have thought about getting that baseline and really knowing, okay, where do we go from here? So Andy, take us through, when you're working with a client, and you're going through that initial discussion in terms of a project, what is the first step that you do when you are working with that new client to understand what the needs are and kind of come up with that customized plan for them?
Laura, that's a great question. So I typically lead off, a lot of folks will lead off with the vision. Where do you want to be? I kind of need to understand where you are, because you may have a vision that doesn't align, with where you are today. I mean, if somebody wants to be 10 times greater than where they are today within, a few months, that might not be reasonable. So what I do, the very first thing is, what do we have to work with in order to fill that vision?
Okay, so all right, so we're going through the vision. You need to know where they are at this moment. What's the starting point? What are some of the questions that you ask them to really understand where they are?
Well, first and foremost, I really, analyze their monthly P&Ls. That's a great start to kind of, determine where their financial condition is. And then I basically employ, their head count, the various different roles in that head count, and determine, their baseline metrics. A lot of companies come to me and say, hey, Andy, what's the industry standard? And that's a great question, and that's a great solve. But to me, I always want to take care, and I always project and, let everybody know that I deal with, you have to clean up your house first. Where are your metrics? And that's really, step number one. Forget about where you need to be. Where are you actually? Because a lot of folks want to look at the profitability way down the road before they understand, where they are fundamentally. And that's a big fallacy.
So Andy, I'm almost, as you're speaking, I'm picturing in my brain, it's like following the tea leaves, right? It's kind of like you put all the numbers on the table and you gotta, you kind of go through those and it paints a picture, right? It paints a picture of some of the decisions that were made. It paints a picture of where they are at that moment. It paints a picture of what needs to happen in order to get them where they're looking to go, right? So is it really, from someone that knows numbers so well, like yourself, are you able, when you kind of open up those numbers, are you able to see all of that, kind of where they were, where they are, and where they're going, and kind of giving them a roadmap as far as matching up that vision for the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I mentioned earlier, the P&L reports will be like the first start, coupled with the head count associated with those reports, taking a look at some items such as the revenue that's generated from the folks that were in that head count that's sales related, determining the number of units, so you could kind of get an efficiency mark, coupled with the revenue per loan, so you could kind of see what commission structures look like. Are they equitable? Because a lot of times they're not. And that's a great place to start, having just those three items. Typically, the sales activity, the head count, and the profit reports will basically allow me an opportunity to do some, really, top of the line, assessment. And then anything that comes out of that assessment that is a little bit out of the ordinary, then we could drill down from there. But 9 times out of 10, that's all we really need.
Got it. So the name of our podcast is Illuminating Solutions. So Andy, one question I'd like to ask you is, so who should be thinking about calling you for this? Who's that client out there that should be going, man, I need some of these solutions. Who would that be?
Well, the solution actually is something that we provide, but before we even get to the solution, we have to really just have that conversation. Where are you now? Where you want to be? And determining whether or not you have sufficient business to warrant these really long term and lofty goals. And then from there, we could if we're not there yet, we could have the little baby steps. But from the standpoint of who should be, asking, certain questions, and perhaps, setting up appointments, and, kind of doing this discovery phase, I think it's anyone, that, basically is in business. I mean, if you don't have a resource in place today to give you that illumination, who better than us, to provide some insight to some things you may have, in-house, and some things that you probably do yourself and not expert on.
I love that. Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And as we wrap up, I would love for you to share a story or two of a major transformation that you've seen in a company that you've worked with.
I have a few, but I'm gonna
Pick like one or
I'm
two.
I'm gonna pick one that is really dear to my heart. So this was way back when, probably about 15 to 20 years ago. We were this individual branch manager, just recently new branch manager, didn't understand P&L, didn't understand what they were getting themselves into. Really worked their tails off in that office, from the salespeople all the way on to processing, ops, and a whole 9 yards. And lo and behold, they had the biggest and most grandiose funding levels they've ever seen, but yet on a profitability side, they lost money.
Oh no.
Yeah, they lost a lot of money because of a lot of different things, and one of them actually has to do with loan officer compensation equity. What they're bringing in versus what they're paying was really, really small margin. coupled with, brick and mortar, offices and things of that nature, it was basically lopsided. So this person was basically on the phone crying, couldn't believe that, you know, we lost money with the greatest funding ever. So how are we going to turn this around? So I basically said, we're going to have to make some difficult decisions, but these decisions will allow you to, one, stop losing money. Two, you break even. Because before you go from losing money to making money, you got to know how to, cover your expenses. And then from there, we put in some targeting mechanisms after we right size the branch. And lo and behold, within 9 months, that branch was the most profitable branch in the company. So that was a very, huge success story, for me personally. I have a second example, which I like to call the whiteboarding example.
Okay. Yes, please share.
Okay, so the whiteboarding example is I have an idea, I have a thought, but I don't know where to start. But I know if I don't start someplace analyzing what this opportunity, what this change in methodology, if it could be a product that we're wanting to bring on board, before we invest a lot of resources and capital, the whiteboard approach basically is, well, let's, delve into the numbers a little more, determine if there's, enough profit, or, revenue to offset the investment of what we're thinking about. And it doesn't have to be all the time something that we're adding, like we're going to add a new business venture, we're going to add a new product. It could be as simple as something as, what metric can we, track and evaluate and hold people accountable to in order to, provide a certain result. Yep. So I'm going to give you the example basically was, I've never seen anybody want to track credit orders, to be a leading indicator of what funding might look like for individuals. So we sat down and we did a whole analysis on, first of all, where we are, what we actually encountering, the number of credit orders as fund, one loan per loan officer, and where we want to be. So we basically evaluated our house. We implemented strategies that will allow us to, report, keep visible, allow us to improve 25%, a month, 50% a quarter, whatever it may be, to get to a final result. So what ended up happening was at the end of 2 quarters, we had significant lifts in production without adding headcount, and we developed a standard. And the standard usually is different, per organization because the way organizations are set up. And that's basically one of the whiteboarding opportunities that we could provide.
I love that. And Andy, the thing that I've really come to realize is sometimes things like that, from an outside perspective, removes the emotion. So many times that when you're in an organization and it's the same group of people always working together, sometimes it's difficult to do this analysis and this implementation when people are so close to it. But by using an outside firm such as Lighthouse Advisors, it gives that perspective to where you remove that personal connection and it just comes down to the numbers and the execution of reviewing what the best plan to move forward. And those results are very, very common because of those factors of coming together and working together on that plan. Andy, thank you so much for joining us. This has been absolutely amazing. And for everyone listening out there, if you want to learn more about what Andy has to offer and all of the different services that Lighthouse Advisors has to provide, reach out to us at discovery@lighthouseadvisors.com, and we will set up a call to get your needs and understand and partner you with the best solutions. Andy, thank you so much and keep shining brightly, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.